And welcome back to Exam Prep Lesson 2 Part 3, where we are talking about equipment. Well done for surviving everything so far. So proud of you. Let's keep going. So, for 26.2, we are expected to be able to state the equipment requirements for a night VFR flight under Car 91. And under Car 91 221, it's listed as flying equipment and operating information. And all it says is that a pilot in command of an aircraft must ensure that the following equipment and information in current and appropriate form is accessible to every flight crew member of the aircraft. And specifically number 4, which is for night operations, an operable electric torch for every flight crew member. And all that means is that the extra equipment requirement for a VFR night flight is the additional torch. Now, it's additional above and beyond everything else that you'd need for a VFR day flight. For 26.4, we need to be able to state the equipment requirements for a flight over water under Car 91. And under Car 91 525 covers the flights over water, and it says that an aircraft that is operated on a flight over water must be equipped with one life preserver for each person aboard and stowed in a position that is readily accessible from the seat or berth occupied by the person if 1. The aircraft is a single-engine aircraft and the flight distance to shore is more than gliding distance for that aircraft, or 2. The aircraft is multi-engine aircraft that is unable to maintain a height of at least 1,000 feet AMSL with one engine inoperative and the flight distance to shore is more than the gliding distance of that aircraft, or number 3, the aircraft is a multi-engine aircraft that is capable of maintaining a height of at least 1,000 feet AMSL with one engine inoperative and the flight distance to shore is more than 50 nautical miles. B is a single-engine aircraft or multi-engine aircraft that is unable to maintain a height of at least 1,000 feet above mean sea level, with one engine operative that is operated on a flight over water that extends more than 100 nautical miles from shore, and that must be equipped with the following. 1. Enough life rafts with buoyancy and rated capacity to accommodate all the occupants of that aircraft, and 2. A survival locator light on each life raft, if there is more than one life raft in the emergency equipment. 3. A survival kit appropriately equipped for the route to be flown. It's a little bit ambiguous, but we'll get there. Attached to each life raft, and 4. At least one pyrotechnic signaling device, a flare, on each life raft. And 5. One ELT or ELTS or one EPIRB. And remember, that's an or. One ELT or one EPIRB. Now, for 26.4, we need to be able to state the equipment required for a flight over water under Car 91. And it carries on. C. A multi-engined aircraft that is capable of continuing flight with one or more engines inoperative, that is operated on a flight over water that extends more than 200 nautical miles from shore, must be equipped with the equipment specified in paragraph B. D. An aircraft in excess of 5,700 kilograms MCTOW that is operated on a flight over water that extends to more than 200 nautical miles from shore must be equipped with 1. The equipment specified in paragraph B, and 2. Additional ELT or ELTS or EPIRB. E says that a manned balloon must be equipped with one life preserver for each person on board, stowed in a position that is readily accessible from the position occupied by the person if the flight crosses or might cross the shore of any lake or sea. 2. The flight takes off from or intends to land at a site where the takeoff or approach path is so disposed over water that in the event of a mishap there is a likelihood of ditching. Or 3. The flight takes off from a site that is located within 1 nautical mile of water at the ordinary height watermark and the wind is offshore or is less than 5 knots onshore. F covers the the life preservers, life rafts, signal device, ELTS and EPIRB required under any of the paragraphs A to E must be installed in conspicuously identified locations and must be easily accessible in the event of ditching the aircraft. Aircraft operations on water. So an aircraft operating on water must be equipped with one life preserver for each person on board, stowed in a position readily accessible from each seat or berth. 2, for each aircraft in excess of 5,700 kilograms MCTOW, 1 sea anchor. Now, those things that we've just discussed, the English term of that is that the equipment requirements for flights over water can be tricky. Remember, a radio that meets level 1 or 2 and is capable of maintaining continuous contact is required if flying more than 30 minutes flying time from the nearest shore. A single-engined aircraft that is flown more than gliding distance from shore must have a life preserver for each person on board. Life preservers are also required when flying a multi-engine aircraft that cannot maintain at least 1,000 feet above mean sea level, which is more than gliding distance from shore. If a multi-engine aircraft can maintain at least 1,000 feet above mean sea level, life preservers are not required unless flying more than 50 nautical miles from shore. Any aircraft which cannot maintain 1,000 feet AMSL with an engine inoperative that is flying more than 100 nautical miles from shore must also be equipped with life rafts which have locator light, survival kit, pyrotechnic signaling device attached, and 1 ELT or 1 EPIRB. If a multi-engined aircraft can maintain more than 1,000 feet AMSL but is flying more than 200 nautical miles from shore, it must have the life raft, including its equipment, and the ELT or EPIRB. Any aircraft over 5,700 kilograms MCTOW that is operated more than 200 nautical miles offshore must have the life raft, including its equipment, and the ELT EPIRB, plus an additional ELT, ELTS or EPIRB. So, if a multi-engine aircraft can maintain more than 1,000 feet AMSL but is flying more than 200 nautical miles from shore, it must have a life raft, ELT or EPIRB. If you have a heavier aircraft, over 5,700 kilograms MCTOW, that is operated more than 200 nautical miles from shore, you must have everything ELT and EPIRB, but an additional ELTS or EPIRB. So the only difference is if you've got a heavier aircraft that's flying 200 nautical miles, you've got to have an additional ELT, ELTS or EPIRB. And an aircraft that operates on water, float planes, etc., Catalina, if you're lucky enough to fly one of those, must always carry a life preserver. And if the aircraft is over, like a Catalina, 5,700 kilograms MCTOW, you must also carry a sea anchor. The equipment must be stored in an easily identified location and be easily accessible in the event of a ditch. Excuse me. In 426.6, we are expected to be able to state the requirements for indicating the time in flight under CAR 91, and that's covered in 91.221, flying equipment and operating information. And the only bit that's really of use to us here is A, which says a pilot in command of an aircraft must ensure that the following equipment and information in current and appropriate form is accessible to every flight crew member. That's what we said earlier. And this is the most important one. Number 1, an accurate means of indicating the time. And that basically boils down to you must have a means of indicating time. If the aircraft has a working clock that all flight crew can see, this would meet the requirement. However, note that a clock is not part of the aircraft's minimum stated equipment. So as long as each flight crew member has a clock or a watch, you can depart. And it's just, has everyone got a watch? Yes, lovely, let's go. Doesn't even say it has to be at the right time, but everyone must be able to have a means of telling the time. 426.8. We are expected to be able to state the requirements for emergency equipment in aircraft with seating capacity for less than 10 passengers. And again, that's under Car 91, and it's 91523, and this is emergency equipment. And it states that A, an aircraft with a certified seating capacity of 10 passenger seats or more must be equipped with 1. The number of first aid kits specified in Table 7, and you can look up Table 7, it's nice and easy, which must be distributed and readily accessible in each passenger compartment for the treatment of injuries likely to occur in flight or in minor accidents. And number 2, the number of handheld fire extinguishers specified in Table 8, you can look that up, which must be readily accessible and distributed in accordance with Table 8. D, each of the equipment that is required under paragraph A, 2 and C must clearly indicate its method of operation. So most fire extinguishers show you pull pin, point in direction of fire, squirt trigger. Each compartment or container that contains an item of equipment that is required under paragraph A must be marked to indicate its contents. So usually, as you see on normal flights, you'll see that some of those upper storage areas, or as you walk in to the fuselage of a 727, you'll see the little medical red and white cross indicating that that is where the emergency kits are. So any questions regarding emergency equipment in the exam need to be answered with caution. And this comes down to how many passengers you are carrying if you're flying over water or above 10,000 feet will affect what equipment you must have available in the aircraft. No first aid kits or fire extinguishers are required in an aircraft with 9 passenger seats. Can't express that enough. Not 9 passengers, 9 passenger seats or less. With 10 or more passenger seats, first aid kit 1, fire extinguisher 1 is required. Note that there do not have to be 10 passengers on board the aircraft, just seats for the passengers. You could have a plane that has 10 seats, 1 passenger. You comply with the number of seats, not the number of passengers that you are carrying. And in the true tradition of all things exam related, you will get flaky, funky questions that will try and confuse the issue. So remember that this is all based on passenger seats, not number of passengers. So 10 passengers on board, just the seating for 10 passengers. The fire extinguishers must be marked clearly with the method of operation. It needs to be idiot proof. The location of the first aid kit and the fire extinguisher must also be clearly marked. Non-pressurized aircraft that are operating between 10,000 and 13,000 feet for no more than 30 minutes must have supplemental oxygen carried for continuous use. Continuous use meaning it can't run out. By every crew member and 10% of passengers if operating above 10,000 feet for a period exceeding 30 minutes. Please remember this, therapeutic oxygen for continuous use by no less than 3% of passengers must also be carried. I know, it's a lot to take in. Reread it time and time again, it'll sink in eventually. That seems to be more confusing than anything, but just run through it. 426.10, we are required to state the requirements for an ELT under Car 91, which is the emergency locator transmitter. And it says, A person must not operate an aircraft without an automatic ELT installed in that aircraft, except as provided in paragraphs B, D, and E, Rule 121.353B, and Rule 29.109. B states that an aircraft may be operated without an automatic ELT installed if 1. The operation is to ferry the aircraft from the place where the operator takes possession of the aircraft to a place where the automatic ELT is to be installed, and 2. The aircraft does not carry any passengers. C says, despite Rule 91504, Section 4, an aircraft may be operated with an inoperative automatic ELT if 1. The operation is to ferry the aircraft from the place where repairs or replacement of the ELT cannot be made to a place where the repairs or replacement can be made. And 2. The aircraft does not carry passengers. If any doubt, if your automatic ELT is not operating, you cannot carry passengers. Keep that simple. D. Despite Rule 91504, Section 4 and Paragraph A, an aircraft may be operated without an operable automatic ELT for a period of not more than 7 days if the aircraft is equipped with an ELTS or a PLB that is accessible to any person on board the aircraft. In 426.10, we are expected to still state even more stuff about the ELT under Car 91. Despite Rule 91504, Section 4, or Paragraph A, an aircraft may be operated without an operable automatic ELT for a period of not more than 7 days if the aircraft is equipped with an ELTS or a PLB that is accessible to any person on board the aircraft. E. Paragraph A does not apply to the following aircraft. 1. An aircraft that is equipped with no more than 1 seat, and if the pilot is equipped with an ELT, ELTS or PLB. 2. A glider or microlight aircraft, if it's at least 1 person carried in the glider or microlight, and that person is equipped with a personal ELT, ELTS or PLB. 3. A glider or powered aircraft, including a microlight aircraft that is equipped with no more than 2 seats. Notice how this is always about seats, not the persons on board. If the glider or powered aircraft is operated not more than 10 nautical miles from the aerodrome from which the glider or powered aircraft took off. 4. A manned free balloon. F. A holder of a certificate or registration for a New Zealand registered aircraft that is equipped with an automatic ELT or carries an ELTS, EPIRB or PLB that operates on the 406 MHz frequency must not operate the aircraft unless 1. For an automatic ELT, ELTS or the ELTS, the ELT is coded with the International Telecommunication Union country code for New Zealand and any of the following. 1. The ELT serial number. 2. The 24-bit aircraft address. 3. The ICAO aircraft operating agency designator and a serial number allocated to the operator. The aircraft nationality and registration marks. And 2. For an EPIRB or a PLB, the EPIRB or PLB is coded with the International Telecommunications Union country code for New Zealand and a unique code to identify the EPIRB or PLB. And 3, the holder of the certificate of registration has notified the Rescue Coordination Centre New Zealand of the code in accordance with paragraph F1 or F2 for each ELT, EPIRB or PLB that is installed or carried in the aircraft, and the name and emergency contact details of the aircraft operator. G. A person must not operate a foreign aircraft in New Zealand that is equipped with or carries an ELT that operates on 406 MHz unless the ELT is coded with the International Telecommunications Union country code of the state of registry and any of the following. ELT serial number, 24-bit aircraft address, and the ICAO aircraft operating agency designator and serial number allocated by the operator, and the aircraft nationality and registration marks. All of which means you must have an automatic ELT installed, except when ferrying, moving an aircraft with no passengers to a place where an ELT is going to be installed, or ferrying an aircraft to a place where a broken ELT can be fixed. You can fly your aircraft without an operable ELT for no longer than 7 days, as long as you provide an ELT, ELTS or PLB, both are portables, that are accessible to anyone on your aircraft. You do not have to have an ELT in the following situations. An aircraft with only one seat if an ELT, ELTS or PLB is provided. A glider or microlight with at least one passenger if the ELT, ELTS or PLB is provided. A glider or powered aircraft, including a microlight, that has no more than 2 seats if flying no more than 10 nautical miles from where you departed. Or a manned free balloon. If it is the holder of the aircraft certificate of registration that must make sure, it is the holder of the aircraft certificate of registration that must make sure that the ELT is programmed with the New Zealand country code and the information listed in F1, 2 and 3. This information gives search and rescue personnel data about what aircraft's ELT has been activated, who the operator of the aircraft is, colour scheme and contact details, etc., so they know who and what they are looking for. Right, we got through the boring bit. Let's do the Q&A stuff. What extra equipment must you have if operating a night VFR flight? A third means of indicating the aircraft's attitude. B, a first aid kit. C, a life jacket which is worn by each passenger. D, a torch. That's right. The extra equipment required for a VFR night flight is an electric torch for each crew member. One is not going to cut it if you've got more than one person on board. A single engine aircraft flying more than what distance from shore must be equipped with what? A gliding distance, which needs life preservers for each person on board. B, flying more than gliding distance, an extra ELT and life preserver for each person on board. If flying more than 30 nautical miles, a life preserver for each person on board. Or D, 30 minutes and an extra ELT and life preserver for each person on board. And it's A, a single engine aircraft flying more than gliding distance from shore must be equipped with life preservers for each person on board. And again, I can't emphasize enough, equipment requirements for flights over water can be tricky. Remember, a radio that meets level 1 and 2 and is capable of maintaining continuous contact is required if flying more than 30 minutes flight time from the nearest shore. The equipment must be stored in easily identified locations, including the life preservers and life raft, and be easily accessible in the case of ditching. If your aircraft cannot maintain more than 1,000 feet above mean sea level with one engine inoperative and operating more than 100 nautical miles from the nearest shoreline, what extra equipment must you have? A, life preservers and a sea anchor. B, life rafts and life preservers. C, an extra ELT, sea anchor and life raft. D, an extra ELT and life raft. An extra ELT and life raft. Life preservers are required when flying a multi-engined aircraft that cannot maintain at least 1,000 feet AMSL, which is more than gliding distance from shore. If a multi-engined aircraft can maintain at least 1,000 feet AMSL, which is more than gliding distance from shore. Oh, I've just reread that. Sorry. Let's try again. Life preservers are required when flying a multi-engine aircraft that cannot maintain at least 1,000 feet AMSL, which is more than gliding distance from shore. If a multi-engine aircraft can maintain at least 1,000 feet AMSL, life preservers are not required unless flying more than 50 nautical miles from shore. Any aircraft which cannot maintain 1,000 feet AMSL with an engine inoperative that is flying more than 100 nautical miles from shore must also have equipped life rafts, which have a locator light, survival kit, and pyrotechnic signaling device attached, and one ELT or EPIRB. If multi-engine aircraft can maintain more than 1,000 feet above mean sea level, but is flying more than 200 nautical miles from shore, you must have a life raft including its equipment and the ELT or EPIRB. If the aircraft is over 5,700 kilograms MCTOW, that is operated more than 200 nautical miles from shore, it must have the life raft including its equipment and the ELT or EPIRB plus an additional ELT or EPIRB. And an aircraft that operates on water must always carry a life preserver, and if the aircraft is over 5,700 kilograms MCTOW, also carry a sea anchor. This equipment must be stored in easily identified locations and be easily accessible in the case of ditching. You are in charge of a flight to Nelson in an aircraft with 10 seats and only 4 passengers. How many first aid kits and fire extinguishers are required? A. No first aid kits or fire extinguishers. B. 1 first aid kit. C. 1 fire extinguisher. D. 1 first aid kit and 1 fire extinguisher. 1 first aid kit and 1 fire extinguisher. Any questions regarding emergency equipment in the exam need to be answered with caution. So read it and read it again. How many passengers you are carrying if you are flying over water or above 10,000 feet will affect what equipment you must have available. No first aid kits or fire extinguishers are required in an aircraft with 9 passenger seats or less. With 10 or more passenger seats, 1 first aid kit and 1 fire extinguisher is required. Note that they do not have to be 10 passengers on board this aircraft, just seating for 10 passengers. The location of the first aid kit and fire extinguisher must also be very clearly marked. A non-pressurized aircraft that is operating between 10 and 13,000 feet for no more than 30 minutes must have supplemental oxygen carried for continuous use. It cannot run out. And it needs to be accessible by every crew member and 10% of the passengers if operating above 10,000 feet for a period exceeding 30 minutes. Therapeutic oxygen for continuous use by no less than 3% of the passengers must also be carried. And I believe that those two things can be interchangeable, just for the record. In which of the following situations is it required to carry an operable ELT? A. All aircraft over 2 seats. B. Free balloons. C. Aircraft being ferried for ELT maintenance. D. An aircraft with no more than 2 seats operating no further than 10 nautical miles from the departure aerodrome. In which of the following situations is it required to carry an operable ELT? All aircraft over 2 seats. You only do not have to carry an ELT in the following situations: an aircraft with only 1 seat, if an ELT, ELTS or PLB is provided; a glider or a microlight with at least 1 passenger, if an ELT, ELTS or PLB is provided; a glider or a powered aircraft including a microlight that has no more than 2 seats, if flying no more than 10 nautical miles from where you departed; or a manned free balloon. And remember that it is the holder of the aircraft certificate of registration that must make sure that the ELT is programmed with the New Zealand country code, the information listed in F1, F2 and F3. This information gives search and rescue personnel data about what aircraft's ELT has been activated, who the operator of the aircraft is, the colour scheme and the contact details, so they know who they are looking for. What frequencies does the ELT transmit on? A. 121.5 and 123.4. B. 121.5 and 242. C. 151.2 and 406. Or D. 121.5 and 406. What frequencies does the ELT transmit on? And you've got it. 121.5 and 406 megahertz. Well done. We've got to another end. Congratulations. That's lesson 2, part 3. It's getting better. We've got a long one next one, so we'll go to lesson 3, part 1. And with every part 1, it's a significant chunk of change. So we'll need to get our wakey tablets or wakey coffee, and we'll go through it. Again, please like, subscribe, and share. Please, again, if you've got any comments or questions, like so many of you have, then just reach out in the comments. We had a Slava ask our question on the air navigation flights. I was obviously having some problems working it out. More than happy to go through this stuff, so please just reach out. And it's also great to hear from you. Like Darren Z, I hope you pronounced your name right, reached out and just wanted to make contact and have a chat. That was great. So, like, subscribe, share, tell others, but just remember, pilot never stops learning, nor should we.